Is it wrong that I ate a pelican? I was driving to Pismo Pier in California last month with my 5-year-old. My ex-wife got sole physical custody in the divorce, so it had been nearly a year since I had seen him last, and I figured I'd take him to a place that I had fond memories of in my own youth. While picking him up, she had mentioned offhand that a couple of days ago, they found out that he's colorblind, protanopia. After we parked near the pier, we opened the car doors, and were hit with the immediate and familiar scent of brined air, followed by the stench of dead, rotting sargassum. I had hoped that nature would favor me with a cloudless sky, but instead there was a sheet of grey keeping any blue hidden, with a strong and persistent wind devoid of life. Despite this, I put on a smile and took my child's hand as we started walking around the shopping district before the pier. He asked for many things from the overpriced gift shops, and it hurt to say no, but I couldn't bear even another $20 on my credit balance. We were just about to leave the last shop before the pier, a candy emporium, when he gasped with such an excited breath, and asked if he could get something. I turned. It was just a stick of yellow rock candy. He had such an innocent joy on his face, and I don't know if it was that, his voice, or just the simple fact that I could make him happy with something that seemed so small. I still don't know what it was, but I'll never forget that feeling. As I was about to let myself go and tell him he could get it, he shouted out that it was green. I figured I didn't need to correct him. I mean, why spoil his fun? I bought his rock candy, and got a small gummy candy for myself. I pulled out a dark green pocket knife, cut mine open, and asked if he wanted me to open his. He said that he was saving it forever, which must have meant a day or two. We were just about to head onto the pier itself, when I felt something lodged in my front left teeth. I felt around with my tongue. It was spongy, springy, and had an iron taste like blood. We were right by a bathroom, so I told my son to wait where he was while I looked in a mirror to clean my teeth. As I walked in, the wood beneath me creaked. There was no light except for what was coming through the door, and a barely functioning over-mirror light with a deafening buzz. I started far away, baring my upper teeth, and I saw something. It was small, dark, and covered one of my teeth. I slowly inched toward the mirror, the sporadic light from above illuminating my mouth as it became a clearer and brighter red. The humming from the light became louder. It felt like it was clawing into my skull. I stopped moving forward and just stared. It twitched. At that moment, I heard a deep thump come from outside, joined with the sharp cracking of wooden boards. I raced outside to see, and it was a forklift driver that had dropped 2 metal barrels straight onto the wooden pier. I looked around for my son, scanning the area, until I saw him sitting safely in the middle of one of the outreaches of the pier's boardwalk. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I put on a smile and started to slowly walk toward him. The pier looked so long, he looked so small, the sky looked so dark, everything looked so flat. A beam of light started to show through the clouds onto him. It looked so warm. I started to think that everything would be okay. He spotted me from far away. He stood up, and started waving. I waved back. It looked like he loved me. One of the pelicans that had been sitting atop the water below the pier flew up to the boardwalk. It landed right behind him. There was nobody to his back. There was nobody to the left or right of him. I thought it was a little weird, and continued walking. The pelican got closer, and closer, and closer still. He didn't know it was there. It opened its mouth. I started running, and shouting, and screaming. He looked at me, confused. I started trying to point behind him, while screaming. I thought my throat must have been bleeding. I was so far away. The pier looked so long. He looked so far away. It scooped him up into its mouth. I felt my vocal cords snap with tension. I tried to run even faster. The pelican turned, and bore its side to me. It must have been 6 feet tall, and it was missing an eye. That didn't matter. I could feel it looking at me, a mirthless grimace without a smile. I could see the struggle through its disgusting, paper-thin gular pouch. It looked so fragile, but it couldn't be torn. I kept running. I kept screaming, but I knew it would just fly away. As I kept sprinting forward, it remained motionless. I was 20 feet away from it when it flew away. I dropped to my knees and screamed. Tears streamed down my face, into my mouth, and down my throat. They stung me as they tried to absorb into my scarred throat. And every time I would breathe in, the salt in the air would crystallize on my trachea. I thought of a plan to catch it. That same day, I filled a plastic bucket after a visit to the fish market with anything I could get my hands on, and I got pounds upon pounds of super glue in hundreds of tubes. I had to visit multiple stores. I went back to the pier around dusk. I placed the bucket in the same spot he was taken, and spread the super glue in a ring around it. I went over to the bathroom at the start of the pier, and I waited. I watched the sky. The clouds left, being swept away by the same unliving wind that carried the salt in the air. I stared out from the bathroom, only letting my head peek out. As the night grew colder, and the sun set over the ocean, I started to trace my tongue over my teeth, and I felt it again. The same spongy, springy, and iron-tasting bulb. I kept moving my tongue over it, feeling every inch. I began to press into it lightly. Nothing. I looked around briefly, but turned back toward the pier. I pressed more firmly. It began to spread out and contort like a putty, but reformed when I relaxed the pressure. My eyes were locked on the bucket. At that moment I saw a pelican fly up from under the pier. My tongue still on my teeth, I pressed as firmly as I could, and immediately felt a sharp pain through my spine that made me double over and fall to the ground. I picked myself up by the wall and peeked my head out. The pelican was eating from the bucket. I steadied my breath, and started walking toward the pier. I could feel something pounding inside me. Every half second, my arms or fingers would twitch, as I felt something coursing through them. As I continued walking, I guided my tongue across my teeth even more. It was alive. It was beating. It was fueling. Every half second. My strides grew in length. I could feel time dilating around me. I felt alive. My steps became louder. They echoed through the air, and reverberated through the creaking, brackish, barnacle-covered wood of the pier. My breath became deeper, more intent, now only through my mouth. The pelican turned, facing its broadside toward me again. The same missing eye. Its pouch was engorged with the putrid fish, bait, and chum I had left in the bucket. I kept walking at the same speed. I turned my head to the left, staring with my right eye only, took the knife from my pocket, and cut my eye open with 2 diagonal slashes. The world felt small. I turned my head back. I was 30 feet away from it. Then 25. Then I lunged toward it with all the speed I could gather. I watched it try to fly away. Its feet were stuck to the boardwalk. As it tried to flap its wings, they touched the ground, and were adhered to the same glue. I was 10 feet away. Every quarter second, I could feel the beating from my mouth. It started to thrash its body around, contorting itself. I was 5 feet away, and I dove onto it. I felt like I had all the time in the world. I know he's still in there. I first bit into its schooler pouch, and ripped it open after the initial tear. The chum, fish blood, and guts sprayed everywhere. The thing kept flailing about, screeching. I next bit into its lesser covers, trying to break its wings, ripping any flesh off, and spitting out the feathers. I clamped my jaw down again with more force, my whole body feeling shock waves. I heard a snap as the creature shrieked. It was desperate, but so was I. I turned it over on its side, and straddled it on its head. I could feel the cold of the fish parts and its blood running down my neck. I stared down at its belly. I swear I saw something twitch from inside. I dove my head in, jaw wide, clamping down hard enough to hear my teeth scrape and chip against themselves. I pulled up, rending the flesh of its grotesque belly from its body. I saw a mess of entrails, fluids, and organs after swallowing. I slammed my head back into the belly, grabbing as much with my mouth as I could, biting down with all the strength lended to me. I could feel sinew, tendon, muscle, and bile through my teeth. A red mist began in the air. I swallowed my fill, raised my head back, and looked up at the sky. I could feel something cold dripping down my cheeks. My eyes stung. I couldn't move my body. I couldn't feel my fingers. I could feel the beating from my mouth. It was empty. I looked back down, and from within the creature, I saw something. It was a hand or a finger. But it was too late. I know he's not in there. I whipped my body back down into its gut. I could fit my head inside now. I widened my mouth, took in the flesh, and as I was reboning the ligaments from the innards, I felt something while I bit down. It was hard, crunchy, and may have broken a few teeth. The nerves were now exposed, and I knew there was pain, but I was alive. I kept chewing, and swallowed. I looked back down, and I saw something yellow. Or green. Is it wrong that I ate a pelican?
Yes.